What if the key to her deepest pleasure is not in your fingers, but in your focus? Most men approach this with force, not feeling, and fail completely. They will never understand the true map of her body. Stay with me until the very end, because the final principle connects everything, and if you miss it, you will likely stay disconnected from true intimacy forever. Primal presence. Before a single touch, there is the space between you, and in this modern world, that space is crowded. It is filled with the anxieties of your day, the notifications on your phone, the echo of past failures, the pressure to perform. This is the first barrier. It is not physical, it is energetic. You cannot bring a scattered mind to a sacred act and expect a profound result. The journey to her pleasure begins inside of you, in the quietening of your own inner chaos. This is not just philosophy, it is physiology. From a urological and neurological standpoint, her body is an instrument designed for the parasympathetic state, the state of rest, trust, and openness. When your energy is frantic, when your mind is racing, you are broadcasting a sympathetic signal, a signal of threat, of fight or flight. Your touch, no matter how technically skilled, will carry this frantic energy. Her body will sense it on a primal level. The muscles will subtly tense, the blood flow will be restricted from the periphery, and the neurological gates to deep pleasure will remain closed. The first step then is to arrive, fully. Put the phone in another room. Let go of the argument you had with your boss. Release the expectation of a specific outcome. The goal is not to make her feel something. The goal is to create an environment where she can allow herself to feel everything. This begins with your breath. Before you touch her, simply sit with her. Close your eyes for a moment and take 3 deep, intentional breaths. In through the nose, feeling your belly expand, and out through the mouth with a soft sigh. With each exhale, you are not just releasing carbon dioxide. You are releasing the day. You are releasing the pressure. You are emptying your vessel so that you can become a conduit for connection, not a source of anxiety. Your hands themselves hold this tension. Clench your fists as tight as you can for 5 seconds and then release them completely. Feel the warmth and blood rush back into them. Shake them out. You are preparing your tools, not just physically, but energetically. You are telling your own nervous system that you are safe, you are present, and you are ready to listen. This state of calm presence is the foundation upon which every technique is built. Without it, you are merely a technician. With it, you become a partner in a shared experience, a dance of sensation that is co-created in the moment. This is the invisible work, the work 99% of men skip, and it is why they are perpetually confused about why their efforts fall flat. They are trying to build a beautiful structure on a foundation of sand. But choose anatomic wisdom. To truly connect with her body, you must first seek to understand its design, not as a simple diagram in a textbook, but as a living, breathing geography. Most of the world operates on a profound misunderstanding of female anatomy, a misunderstanding that has been passed down through generations of ignorance. They see the clitoris as a small button, a simple switch to be pressed. This is like looking at the peak of a massive mountain and believing it is the entire mountain. It is a fundamental error in perception that leads to a fundamental error in touch. The structure you see is merely the glans, the most externally visible part, which contains over 8,000 nerve endings, more than double the number in the head of a penis. But this is just the beginning of the story. The true anatomy is an internal, intricate, wishbone-shaped structure. It is an iceberg. The visible glans is the tip, but beneath the surface, the body of the clitoris splits into 2 crura, or legs, that extend downwards and wrap around the urethra and vagina. There are also the vestibular bulbs, 2 masses of erectile tissue that sit on either side of the vaginal opening. When she becomes aroused, this entire structure becomes engorged with blood. It swells, it becomes more sensitive, and it is this entire network that you are engaging with. Knowing this changes everything. It changes the way you see, and therefore the way you touch. You are no longer focused on one tiny spot. You are engaging with an entire region, a complex ecosystem of pleasure. Your touch on the labia, your pressure on the perineum, the movement of your fingers inside her, all of it is interacting with different parts of this magnificent internal structure. This is why a singular, repetitive motion often fails. You are playing one note on an instrument that is capable of a symphony. The wisdom is in understanding that different types of touch stimulate this network in different ways. Light, feathery strokes across the entire vulva warm up the entire network. Firm pressure on the mons pubis, the soft mound above the clitoris, stimulates the internal body. The A spot and G spot aren't isolated magic buttons. They are specific points of access to this deeper network, particularly the urethral sponge and the anterior fornix, where pressure can be translated to the internal legs of the clitoris and the cervix. Your task is not to memorize a set of coordinates. Your task is to hold this map in your mind, to develop a reverence for the complexity of the design. When you touch her, you are not just touching skin, you are touching a hidden, powerful structure. This mental shift from a button to an ecosystem is the difference between a fumbling amateur and a conscious lover. It moves you from simply performing an action to communing with her anatomy. Both your listening hands. Now we introduce the first true move, which is a principle before it is an action. We call it the listening hand. Most men use their hands to transmit, to do, to act upon their partner. They have a pre-planned routine, a sequence they have learned, and they execute it regardless of the feedback they receive. The listening hand does the opposite. Its primary function is not to transmit but to receive. It is a diagnostic tool, a sensory organ for gathering information. Before you begin any rhythmic or specific motion, you must first learn the landscape. The journey begins with warmth. Cold hands are a shock to the nervous system. They are an immediate signal of alarm. Warm your hands by rubbing them together vigorously. This simple act is an act of care, a signal of intention. The first touch should be with the back of your hand, gently resting on her inner thigh. This is non-invasive, gentle, and it allows her body to acclimate to your presence. You are listening. Is there a tensing? Is there a leaning in? You are watching her breath. Does it hitch or does it deepen? From here, your hand becomes an explorer. Using the soft pads of your fingers, you begin with the lightest possible touch. Think of it as a feather or the feeling of silk being dragged across skin. You are not trying to create pleasure yet. You are mapping the territory. You are exploring the outer labia, the inner labia, the mons pubis. You are learning the texture of her skin, the temperature, the subtle ways her muscles respond. This light touch stimulates the Meissner's corpuscles, the nerve endings responsible for detecting initial contact and flutter. This is the body's early warning system, and by keeping the touch gentle and safe, you are telling her nervous system that you are a friend, not a foe. You are listening for her body's response, a slight quiver, an involuntary sigh, a subtle shift of her hips towards your hand. These are the whispers. These are the signals that tell you where her body is holding its sensitivity in that exact moment. It will be different every time. Some days, the sensitivity will be concentrated in the glands. Other days, it will be along the labia. The listening hand does not assume. It asks, it feels, it responds. Only after you have gathered this information, after you have established this foundation of trust and safety through gentle, attentive touch, can you begin to introduce more specific, intentional movements. To skip this step is to start a conversation by shouting. You must first learn to listen to the whispers. On my rhythmic flow, once you have established presence and mapped the terrain with your listening hand, you can begin to introduce rhythm. But this rhythm is not yours. It does not come from a pornographic script in your head or a frantic desire to reach a goal. The rhythm must be born from her body. It is a dance and she is leading. You are simply the dance partner who is so exquisitely attuned that you can follow her subtlest cues. This is where we move from listening to conversation. The most fundamental mistake men make is applying a single monotonous rhythm, usually a frantic, fast circle, and never varying it. This is the equivalent of a musician playing a single loud note over and over again. At first, it might be interesting, but it quickly becomes irritating and numbing to the nervous system. The nerves adapt, the sensation dulls, and the brain tunes it out. Arousal requires variation. It requires dynamics. It requires a flow that builds, recedes, and builds again, like a wave. Begin with what her body has already told you. If your listening hand discovered a particular sensitivity on the left side of her clitoral hood, that is where the dance begins. Start with a slow, deliberate figure 8 motion, using the pad of one finger to gently trace this shape over the area. Feel the texture, the response. Then introduce a second finger to harmonize with the first. One can hold gentle pressure on the mons pubis, stimulating the internal body of the clitoris, while the other continues its slow dance on the outside. Now you synchronize the movement to her breath. As she inhales, your movement is lighter, more exploratory. As she exhales, the pressure deepens slightly. You are literally moving in rhythm with her life force. This creates a powerful feedback loop. Her body relaxes more on the exhale, allowing her to receive your touch more deeply, which in turn deepens her next breath. You are now co-regulating each other's nervous systems. From here, you can introduce other rhythms. The come hither motion with 1 or 2 fingers inside is not about finding a magic button. It is about applying gentle rhythmic pressure to the anterior vaginal wall, which in turn stimulates the urethral sponge and the internal legs of the clitoris. From below, the key is rhythm, not location. A steady, pulsing pressure in sync with her breathing is far more powerful than a desperate search for a specific spot. You can alternate, creating a symphony of sensation, a few moments of internal pulsing, followed by a return to the external, slow figure 8. You are creating waves. You build the energy, then let it subside slightly, then build it again, each time reaching a slightly higher peak. This is what avoids the numbing effect of monotony. You are keeping her nervous system guessing, engaged, and alive. The flow is not your masterpiece to perform. It is a river whose current you are following. And the more you surrender to her current, the more powerful the journey becomes for both of you. Building momentum. There is a critical phase in arousal where the character of touch must evolve. The gentle exploratory motions of the beginning have laid a foundation of trust and have awakened the nerves. But to move towards the peak of orgasm, the energy must be amplified. This amplification, however, is not about becoming rough, fast, or aggressive. That is the panic response of an unskilled practitioner. Building momentum is an art form. It is about skillfully layering sensations and increasing intensity in a way that feels like a natural, thrilling crescendo, not a sudden assault. This is the phase where you combine the external and internal, the direct and indirect, into a single, overwhelming chorus of sensation. Your 2 hands now work in perfect concert. One hand remains the anchor of external rhythm, perhaps transitioning from a slow figure 8 to a more direct, but still gentle, circling or tapping motion on the clitoral glands. The other hand becomes the source of deep, resonant bass notes. This is where you can explore the internal landscape more fully. With your fingers inside, you can transition from the come hither motion to a deeper, fuller pressure. The rocking motion involves keeping your fingers relatively still, but using your whole hand and wrist to create a gentle rocking pressure against the anterior wall. This stimulates a broader area and feels less like a poking and more like a deep, satisfying presence. The true art is in the synergy. While your internal fingers are creating this deep, rocking rhythm, your external thumb can apply firm, steady pressure to the clitoral glands through the hood. You are now stimulating the nerve endings from 2 directions at once, the 8,000 on the outside and the deep internal structure from the inside. This is incredibly powerful. The brain is receiving signals from multiple pathways simultaneously, creating a sensation that is both specific and diffuse, sharp and deep. It is this layering that builds the unstoppable momentum towards climax. Pay attention to her entire body. As the momentum builds, her breathing will become faster. Her hips may start to move on their own. This is your cue. Your job now is to meet her rhythm, not to lead it. Match the tempo of her hips with the tempo of your hand. If she pushes up into your touch, meet her with firm, steady pressure. You are no longer just a dancer, you are the dance floor itself, providing a solid, reliable foundation for her to move upon. You can introduce a technique called edging. As you feel the energy building to an almost unbearable peak, you deliberately soften the pressure and slow the rhythm for a moment. Let the wave recede just slightly before building it again, this time even higher. This technique sensitizes the nerves and floods the brain with dopamine, making the eventual release exponentially more powerful and full-bodied. You are not just pushing for a finish line, you are stretching the experience, expanding her capacity for pleasure and building a wave of energy so powerful that its final crash is a truly transcendent release. But sacred integration, and then the wave crashes. There is the release, the climax. For most men, this is the end of the script. The work is done. They withdraw their hands, roll over, and the connection is severed as abruptly as a dropped phone call. This is perhaps the single greatest and most common mistake. They abandon their partner in the most open, vulnerable, and neurologically sensitive state she can be in. The moments after her orgasm are not an epilogue. They are a crucial part of the experience itself. This is the chapter of sacred integration, and it is here that the deepest bonding occurs. From a biological perspective, her brain is now flooded with a powerful cocktail of hormones. Oxytocin, the love hormone, is at its peak, creating feelings of deep trust and connection. Prolactin is released, inducing a state of profound relaxation and satisfaction. Her nervous system, which was just in a state of peak sympathetic arousal, is now shifting dramatically back into a deeply restful parasympathetic state. It is a tender liminal space. Your role in this moment is to be the anchor. Do not disappear. Your touch must change, but it must not vanish. The intense rhythmic movements must cease immediately, as the area can be exquisitely sensitive, even painful after climax. Your touch now becomes one of stillness, of presence, of pure comfort. A hand resting gently on her belly, fingers softly stroking her hair, your body held close to hers. No words are necessary. The energy you cultivated must now be held and grounded. You are creating a safe harbor for her to land in. This non-demand, comforting presence communicates something profound. I am not here just for the peak. I am here for you, all of you, the journey and the destination. This is what transforms a physical act into an act of deep intimacy. It rewires her brain to associate pleasure not just with orgasm, but with you, with your presence, your safety, your care. This is the final principle, the one that connects everything. The presence you cultivated at the beginning must be the presence you maintain at the end. The entire arc, from the first conscious breath to the final moment of silent connection, is one continuous whole. The orgasm is not the goal, the connection is the goal. The climax is simply the most powerful expression of that connection. By staying present during the integration phase, you are completing the circuit. You are allowing the oxytocin and the shared experience to solidify your bond. You are teaching her nervous system, on the deepest possible level, that opening up to you is not just pleasurable, but profoundly safe. This feeling of safety is the secret ingredient that allows for even deeper, more powerful experiences in the future. It is the gift that keeps on giving. It is the difference between a fleeting moment of pleasure and the foundation of lasting soulful intimacy. Do not abandon her at the altar of the orgasm. Stay, be still, and hold the sacred space you created together. Which principle are you going to focus on first to deepen your connection? The primal presence or the listening hand? Share your choice below. Let's master this art of intimacy together.